Let me welcome you. My name is Mike Tilke. I am the Executive Director for the Eastern Shore Entrepreneurship Center on Maryland's beautiful Eastern Shore, which is located east of the Chesapeake Bay. And I'm pleased to be your moderator today. So good afternoon to those in the Netherlands. Good morning to those in Maryland. And we hope that this will be the first of what will be other follow-up webinar events where we begin to explore and advance greater awareness about the business opportunities that exist between Maryland and the Netherlands. We have a very, very busy agenda today. So if you've never participated in speed dating, this is going to feel a bit like it. We have a number of speakers that are going to be presenting today, and I'll do my best to keep us moving along as efficiently as possible. So I guess I'll get us started with welcoming our keynote speaker who's going to do some opening remarks, Signe Pringle, who is the Deputy Secretary for the Maryland Department of Commerce. Let me welcome you and ask you to share a few remarks with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. So good morning and good afternoon to our friends in Netherlands. This is an exciting day, and I'm honored to be able to kick off the program here for you this morning. Maryland and InnovationQuarter in South Holland have had a MOU in place already for the past 5 years for cooperation in cybersecurity, which was actually expanded 3 years ago to also include biotech. And while the interactions were slowed by the COVID pandemic, we continue to pursue and foster additional cooperation in areas like water management, climate resilience, and flood mitigation. And as part of this successful partnership so far, Maryland and InnovationQuarter have mutual soft landing programs, which also allow our respective companies to easily find space in incubators and access additional support services as companies in both regions look to expand internationally. And the reason why we're here today, we are now collaborating in an area of AgTech and looking to bring Dutch agricultural technology together with Maryland's cybersecurity. This is a start to many new interactions, and we look forward to maintaining and expanding our relationship with InnovationQuarter and the Netherlands as a whole. So I would like to thank all of the parties that have made this program possible here this morning. Baltimore-Rotterdam Sister City Program, Institute for Environmental and Marine Technologies, Netherlands America Chamber of Commerce, Maryland Department of Agriculture, F3 Tech, CyberAg, InnovationQuarter, Rotterdam partners, as well as my colleagues at the Maryland Department of Commerce, who you are here from later, as well as remain to assist you with your future needs. So as you can see, the collaboration among all these parties show the level of commitment that both Maryland and the Netherlands have in furthering this relationship. So please enjoy the program and take advantage of the spirit and desire to work together in mutual areas of interest. So let's make great things happen, and let's do it together. So thank you for having me, and enjoy your program.
Thank you so much, Signe. Appreciate those remarks. Well, we're going to kick off the program right out the gate here with introducing Eric Egberts, who is the CEO for Dutch Greenhouse Delta. So Eric, thank you for joining us.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Good morning for the people in Maryland. Good afternoon for all the people here in the Netherlands, where I'm from. You are now connected with me here in the Westland area, and I am the director of Dutch Greenhouse Delta. I take you along roughly 10 minutes on the field of agriculture, the history and the future, and try to explain very briefly what we as Dutch Greenhouse Delta, as industry with our AgTech can bring to Maryland. And it's a very big honor for me to be present here and to showcase the Dutch technology where we are so proud of. First, a connection with InnovationQuarter. For us, InnovationQuarter is a very important partner. Together, we built different programs to different countries to talk about fresh produce. So for us, we are used to collaborate. And I think that comes together in Dutch Greenhouse Delta. We are an association of greenhouse technology suppliers, meaning seed companies, greenhouse companies, artificial intelligence companies, and so on, joining forces together to contribute to the challenges of the world today regarding to fresh and healthy food. Please switch to the next page. I'm looking a little bit how I can move my presentation. There we go. Thanks. A little bit about the history. We have a long history in the Netherlands on horticulture. After the Second World War, we had to feed our people at that moment in the greater Europe, from Berlin to Milan and Barcelona and London. How are we going to feed that world in that time? It was our challenge. And still it is the challenge, so please, yeah. It's still the challenge of many countries has, how to feed the population around them. And we have that history. We overcome, please go back to the previous slide, please. We overcome that challenge by our mentality in do and entrepreneurship, working together. And if you look now, we have many cooperatives running in the agriculture world, because we strongly believe that when you collaborate on different fields, you can achieve more and achieve sometimes faster. We have established here in the Netherlands a big ecosystem. When I take my bike here outside the office, within a range of 10 miles, I have maybe 500 companies that are active in the AgriTech industry, from breeding companies to logistic and so on and so on. So we have a very strong network. And it is now up to my generation and younger generations to bring those companies, those nice technology, all the knowledge abroad, because we have some challenges that I want to fade out to you in the next slide. We all know those global challenges. Talking about climate change, talking about to feed the world, talking about global health, not only related to COVID, but let's talk about obesitas and other healthcare related diseases that can be fingered out to what are we eating tonight? But also, how are we going to produce all this food? How are we implementing renewable energy? Because we cannot continue on fossil fuel. And of course, how can we enhance reducing a food system that takes too much part of our biodiversity? When I look to Brazil and other countries where we see too much of one crop, we need this biodiversity. So we have all those challenges. We know them, and they all come together on a one simple issue, and that is food. Food is the key to many solutions. How are we producing fresh and healthy food locally? And that's what I'm going to explain to you. Please, the next slide. I skipped the movie. You will see the presentation yourself, and it explains exactly how we operate. But I have limited time, and you can see afterward. The aim of my foundation is feeding the world. The Dutch horticulture industry is able to be the second largest food exporter of the world for such a tiny country. But I would like also to say that I think 9 out of 10 horticulture projects on scale somewhere in the world has a relation with the Netherlands, because we have this long history. The history to overcome the challenges that we see today. And what is the secret behind it? The secret is we are building ecosystems. Like a Dutch delta that we have here, what we have around my office here. We want to build that also in Maryland and in other states. Because we strongly believe that when you bring companies together on one spot, you achieve more than that you ping pong them out in the desert or somewhere in a wide space of your land. They have to collaborate, to interact with your city, and so on. And then it can be successful to produce sustainable and local food production, because that is our aim, local and sustainable. Next slide, please. So if you ask me, what is my approach? Let's explain me. On the top of this very nice graphic, you will see the Sustainable Development Goals. We are all aware of those goals. We want to figure out together which goal is most important for you. Is that work? Is it environment? Is it climate? Tell us. And let's see if we can build a purpose on why you want to have AgTech in Maryland. Just because of the sake of it is nice, doesn't make any sense for me. I need a real purpose, a real drive, and a real leader to make it happen in the purpose. And then it tumbles down on this nice graphic. Then we can bring in and discuss about, okay, can we build a solution from fork to farm? Fork to farm? Yes, we always start with the end in mind, meaning talking with the retailer. What do you need as a party that knows best what the consumer wants? And then we can walk backwards. We talk with the retailer and we are designing the value chain together. Building up programs, as you can see in yellow and orange and in blue, that is needed to reach our common goal. That is what we are going for. So please join me. Let me know who wants to join me in this common goal by building this complete ecosystem. An ecosystem where we bring in the infrastructure, greenhouses, production, trade, and marketing. All that knowledge we can bring together because it's a joint effort. This integrated farm to fork solution. Next slide, please. To explain very briefly how it works, we say we make a strategic agenda. Of course, with the help of Wageningen University or other universities, to define the size of the drivers and the impact of the drivers. Discuss with all the stakeholders. Together with them, we develop the programs. Is it on education? Is it on innovation? Is it on energy? Is it all different programs? And it leads to projects where we produce fresh and healthy food. Next slide, please. I'm not traveling alone. I'm very proud of my partners. Coming from seed companies like Syngenta, Bayer, BASF, all well-known names, to greenhouse construction builders, or climate screens, or lighting companies. All those companies are active already in the US and want to join forces to make it happen, because we strongly believe and have shown that working together in a very, let's say, do and act mentality surrounding can achieve our goals. And our goal, my personal goal, is to feed the world with fresh and healthy food. Thank you very much. I'm open for some questions, please.
Well, unfortunately, Eric, I don't think we have time for questions until the end of the webinar. And then we understand you have to leave us in order to get to another commitment. So we want to thank you very, very much and appreciate your being with us today. However, I believe the rest of our speakers will be sticking with us for the balance of the webinar. So I would encourage all of the attendees, as you hear the speakers, please put your questions in the Q&A section. not in the chat section. And we will be monitoring the Q&As and trying to cover as many of them towards the end of the webinar as possible. So what I'd like to do now is bid Eric adieu and ask Bert Feskens to join us. He's the Senior Security Program Manager and Innovation Liaison with Security Delta. So Bert, welcome.
Thank you, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. And I can absolutely agree with the previous speaker. Also, from our perspective, like collaboration, public-private collaboration is absolutely at the core of what we do. I work for the Dutch security cluster, Security Delta. We're also a strong partner for InnovationQuarter, and we're actually the host ecosystem for the soft landing program for cybersecurity in the Netherlands. And it's great to see also that when it comes to societal challenges like cybersecurity by itself, but also cybersecurity in relation to agriculture, we know how we can find each other now much better. And that for us, really the ecosystem approach is an absolutely key part in that. So I think if I come from a security perspective, and so security in early times was relatively straightforward, but nowadays we are connected all over the world. We're connected through the internet, and we see that security solutions do not end at the border of a country. They do not end at the border of a city. They do not end at the border of an organization. And especially if you look at the agriculture sector, then also the supply chain security is of key importance. If you are a large organization in the agriculture sector, but all your suppliers fall away, all your small suppliers fall away, you've got a major issue. So that is why the combination between collaboration, cybersecurity, and our agriculture is so important. So we, as an organization, so we represent the Dutch security ecosystem, and we've been working together also with the Dutch government, the Netherlands Embassy, also in DC, also InnovationQuarter, in positioning the security sector in the US for the long term. So we've been doing that through a roadmap that we set up together, and has also been signed by all the main Dutch companies, all the main government organizations, and all the regional organizations and cluster organizations in the Netherlands. So we are really taking a strong approach there by going to the US together. And that works both ways. We also very much welcome security companies and other companies, of course, from the US to the Netherlands, and help them also in finding their way here in the Netherlands. So that is an important one, just more from the broader perspective, collaboration between the United States and the Netherlands. And if we can then go more into like what are we focusing on in the Netherlands when it comes to the crossover between agriculture and cybersecurity. And if we can then please go to the next slide. So what we are currently working on, and this is relatively new, we are working on setting up a cyber resilience center for the horticulture sector. And what that means is that we are going to utilize all the knowledge and expertise that we have within our security cluster, and we combine that with the ecosystem for the horticulture sector. So we've been doing that, like we've been working on this for about a year and a half. And last year, we applied for a grant for the Dutch government to actually set up this cyber resilience center. And we actually heard that we actually won this grant. So we are gonna roll this out. And it's good to maybe give you a bit of an insight in what and how we're gonna do this. And again, the overall aim for this is the supply chain security for the horticulture sector. So for the larger organizations, but very much also for all these smaller organizations that are relatively immature when it comes to cybersecurity. And that starts with communication. A very important aspect of this is, first of all, raising awareness. Many people, like whatever sector you look at, are not fully aware of the risks that they are facing. They're very aware when it comes to fire or when it comes to burglary, like, you know, they know how to lock up their house or their business. But when it comes to cyber, they often don't. And what we then see is that in many cases, often we come across cases where small farmers that the son or daughter is managing the computer, and at the same computer they're downloading videos and they're doing whatever, and that is really shows that there is a lot of things that we still need to do. And so to get everyone involved, we first need to raise the awareness level. We're going to do that by setting up a communication platform, but specifically in this sector, it's really about doing things. So we are really going to focus on doing and not only about talking. And one of the things that we are going to do is that we're going to provide a company baseline measurement. So we're going to help each company that becomes part of our Cyber Resilience Center with a baseline level measurement on where they are at. And it's very practical. So nothing too complicated, nothing too difficult, really in their language, showing them, hey, this and this is your status of your company when it comes to cyber, and these are the key risks that you are facing. So what we've previously done is that we've done a sectoral baseline measurement. So we already have quite a good understanding of what how the sector is doing as a whole. But then from a sectoral approach, like sectoral measurement, onto a baseline level measurement. And with that, we're not going to leave companies there. We're also going to actively help them with practical tools and checklists on how to improve their cyber resilience level. And that is also, we're not going to just send them that information. We're really going to talk them through it. Also practical workshops, really about focusing on doing things. For the more mature organizations, we are going to set up an information sharing and analysis center. And that will include also threat intel. Right now, the agriculture sector, horticulture sector, they do, in the Netherlands at least, they do not directly receive threat intel from the Netherlands cybersecurity agency, the NCSC. So that is what we are going to focus on first. So we're going to provide threat intel to the sector. And that also means that for the top level organizations, we're going to send them the really technical details. For many of the other organizations in the sector, we need to do a translation. If you send like a small farmer or a small company and like a very technical briefing, they're not going to follow that. So it's really also about translating that threat intel to create a strong message, an understandable message for everyone in the supply chain. Well, and then final thing to pick out here is that we are also gonna work on market consultations, because in the end, if you once you know what you need to do, you also need to buy the services and products to actually get things done. We do not expect like people from the agriculture sector to program their own malware software, for anti-malware software, for example. So it's really also about connecting the security industry with the agricultural sector. And then really, again, as a collaboration, make sure that we are raising cyber resilience levels there. The next slide, please. So, and that is what we are aiming for. So we are going to set this up. So this is still, it exists on paper still. So, but in the coming months, we're going to set this up, and this will be a 3-year program. And then hopefully after these 3 years, we have a sustainable business model that we can continue with our Cyber Resilience Center. So there you see, again, crossover between cybersecurity, agriculture, and collaboration. I think that is the sort of the 3 main points with this for my story. So that is, I'm looking forward to any questions at the end of this meeting, and happy to explain you a bit more, like through email or maybe at the end. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Bert, so much. Appreciate that information. I think it's going to be create great opportunities as we develop further in the agenda, where we talk about the cybersecurity efforts in Maryland in agriculture as well. So now we're going to move on to the Maryland portion of our event here. And so please let me welcome Steve Connelly. Steve, if you'd activate, there you go. Steve is the Deputy Secretary for the Maryland Department of Agriculture, recently appointed, and we really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mike. I just wanted to welcome our friends from the Netherlands. Good afternoon, and our friends here in Maryland, good morning. Just to give a little background about Maryland agriculture, we have about 12,400 farms. We're very diverse. Our number one in production is our poultry industry, but we also have egg productions, dairy, grains, vegetables, beef cattle, horticulture, mushrooms. We also have a very affluent consumer base here in Maryland and actually the entire Mid-Atlantic region. So there's lots of opportunities. Our farmers are early adopters of technology, and so I think that there's some great synergies that could be found between our friends in the Netherlands and our farmers here in Maryland. So just want to welcome you and hope that this leads to some strong relationships in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate your joining us. And so now we're going to just move on real quick to another party to the Maryland Department of Commerce, and that's Ewing McDowell. He is the industry specialist for agribusiness and energy, and Ewing is going to share a little bit about the larger landscape of Maryland's agriculture sector. Thank you, Ewing.
Thank you, Mike. Maryland is strategically located in the Middle Atlantic as per the map that's on screen now. We're within transportation convenience of the entire Northeast. We have one of the best food distribution arenas at Laurel, Maryland, that can distribute and process foods. And we have a great future with controlled environment ag, which is getting a lot of interest in Maryland. Just aside, we have the largest mushroom production facility, which originated with Dutch technology outside the country of China, produces 5% of the mushrooms in the United States. We'd really like to attract more of that business. We have all the inputs necessary for the industry between the poultry litter and the biomass needed to make compost. We also have a very strong overall technology with bio and very, very good university system. So we'd like to welcome all of our friends from the Netherlands to consider coming to Maryland. Thank you.
Terrific, Ewing. Thank you. So we're going to keep building on this message from Maryland by having Chris Hlubb join us. And Chris is the program director for the F3 Tech Accelerator program, which helps commercialize innovations and technologies in agriculture and aquaculture. So Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Ewing, for starting that off. I'll continue a little bit more about how F3 fits into this process. So as Mike said, my name is Chris Hlubb, and I'm the program director for the F3 Tech Accelerator program. Our program is based in Maryland and surrounds, obviously, our nation's capital. Is part of one of the largest metro areas in the U.S. One of the big points in terms of access and importance for our program is the fact that as a distribution hub, it can reach 110 million Americans overnight. This is the largest metropolitan area with that capability in the U.S. And it's not only a regional hub because of the government and our location next to Washington, D.C., but it's also one that's quite ideal for business diversity, commercial outreach, customer validation, and access to an extremely highly trained and technological workforce. The region also, as far as the Northeast corridor, represents over 40% of the Fortune 500 companies in this country. So in 2018, F3 set out to develop the most comprehensive and commercially focused AgTech Accelerator program. The program is focused on rapidly advancing the needs of our industry partners, many of whom are other Fortune 500 entities, by helping them to identify the best early stage companies and technologies capable of providing solutions to their emerging problems and those that we're facing in AgTech and many of the related sectors today. We focus on a few of those key related categories. Next slide, please. And those that are most important to us this year are related to automated agriculture, focusing on AI-driven technologies and advances, indoor ag for novel, high-value and value-added crops in urban areas, as well as in large-scale advanced indoor systems, which can employ much more efficient energy and processing technologies. Land-based recirculating aquaculture, as this region has a very long history in aquaculture and a very well seasoned workforce in that due to the Chesapeake Bay, as well as the large quantity of fresh aquifers in the region. As well as looking at the merger of ag and biotech, an area due to our proximity to the biocapital biotech hub, as well as NIH and the FDA, as well as universities such as Hopkins and University of Maryland, are really seeking to promote the advancement of a lot of the existing technologies which have been developed through our human and medical focus, and investing in those in their adaptation to agriculture as a way really to promote a new means of licensing for existing companies, as well as revenue generation for the biotech sector, and to help expedite advances already made in other areas to that of agriculture. And finally, as we are here today and have heard a little bit about the growing sector opportunities in cyber as it relates to agriculture. I think one of the biggest concepts that we can promote overall to all of our stakeholders, from governments to nonprofits to innovators in industry and other early stage companies, is that the resources required to advance agriculture are the same as those that we've actually already invested in the biotech and cyber IT industries. So this isn't as much about fostering new investment always, but rather also finding new ways to disseminate a lot of these transferable skills and technologies to agriculture, to those aspects which are the most important for us of all, which is our food chain. We work closely with a large amount of the private investment and Fortune 500 community to help them identify their technological needs and solutions that they believe could help give them a competitive advantage. We do this differently than many other programs by looking for direct and even indirect opportunities to coordinate new solutions with a customer investor. So our goal is to not only focus on helping early stage companies to better their chances of commercialization, but more so to already perhaps have a customer or investor for the solution that they're developing. By changing this process, we've been able to reduce risks for early stage companies, lessen investment need, as well as aid investors and some of our industrial customers. So for us, vetting innovators for our customers is even more successful than trying to bring together the largest volume of innovators, because we're able to focus on commercializing things faster than ever before. This also helps us to increase the confidence for a lot of these early stage companies, especially those looking at international soft landing programs, by being able to speak effectively in terms of the needs of our customers more quickly, focusing more on where they can make the greatest impact with the least amount of investment and time. In terms of looking at this diversification of this approach and its product value and scalability, our goal really for all companies is to increase their financial stability. Our network is helping to bring a lot of new and alternative viewpoints from industry advisors that we have on our team to help them close opportunities as fast as possible. And in closing, our program really focuses on three areas that bring a culmination, I think, of this discussion today together. The first one is really to promote the great regional resources we have from our base in Maryland as an ideal location to develop all early stage companies, using our proximity to the immense academic, government, military, and other leadership resources that we have to not only promote commercialization, but also manufacturing, an area where, thanks to the support of the state and others around us, we've been able to attract companies and provide options for them for manufacturing from everything from ag tech, crop solutions, to biotech and aquaculture. As well, to promote the use of advanced technologies along with our existing very highly trained workforce. In terms of the aspects that are most important, we believe, to the companies that we work with, it's really to help these organizations, whether foreign or local, to represent the most successful opportunities and technologies and solutions to all of our stakeholders and clients, regardless of where it originates. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate all of that. And what we're going to do now is transition to Nina Lamba, who is the Assistant Director for the Institute of Marine and Environmental Technology, which is part of the University System of Maryland. So Nina, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today, and good afternoon and good morning, everyone. And I am live from London, so I've kind of got a foot in each place here. So I'm here to introduce IMET, which is the Institute of Marine and Environmental Technology. And it's located in one of the iconic buildings around Baltimore's Inner Harbor. So IMET is a joint research institute between three of the universities of Maryland. That's the University of Maryland, Baltimore, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and University of Maryland Center for Environmental Sciences. So UMBC and UMB have large traditional campuses in the region. UMSIS is a little different. It's a research university. We don't have undergraduate teaching. And it comprises 4 labs around the state of Maryland, of which IMET is one. And I'm happy to say that IMET's executive director, Dr. Russell Hill, is in the audience today. And so you're welcome to reach out to either of us should you want to connect. Next slide, please. So the research areas of the faculty at the Institute embrace microbiology and molecular biology, marine resources for human health, algae as alternative fuels and feedstocks, and sustainable aquaculture and responsible stewardship of fisheries. With respect to aquaculture, we have a 50,000 square foot recirculating aquaculture facility on our ground floor. In it, we've cultured dozens, if not hundreds, of different species: fresh fish, saltwater fish, shellfish, finfish, and in areas including high density methods, waste removal, energy recovery from waste, as well as maintenance of health and growth optimization, whether through feed, aquaculture feed, or other parameters essential to growth. And all of these are areas that are critical to the economics of commercial scale aquaculture. Next slide, please. Interestingly, we're also home to a business incubator, Harbor Launch at IMET, with about 12,000 square feet of offices and lab space, which is interspersed among the university research labs. Harbor Launch is currently home to about 20 companies, many of them in human health and environmental technology, including BDP, Aquapipe, environmental health consultants, and REMPAC. The incubator also participates in the State of Maryland Soft Landing Program, which you're going to hear more about in a few minutes. And we offer a range of connections to other partners and resources in Baltimore, including the Baltimore-Rotterdam Alliance and others around the state of Maryland. Next slide, please. So I do want to emphasize that having faculty and science-trained entrepreneurs in the same hallways and lunch areas leads to a very unique culture of possibility and collaboration in the Institute. You know, tying into Eric Egberts' comments earlier about the interactions being really, really important. So faculty, staff, students watch other scientists leading science and taking technology step by step out of the lab. We also have our own innovation and entrepreneurship course, teaching research students about business creation, innovation development, business planning specific to innovation, to get their minds buzzing about the possible solutions that their benchwork could lead to. So in the last 7 or 8 years, IMET's actually spun out 9 companies of its own in the areas of environmental remediation, aquaculture, algae sourced products, and biofuels. And then this culture, supported by these deep partnerships that we have with our partner universities, our sister labs around the state, as one of the University System of Maryland research parks, and business incubators, and also as an active contributor to Baltimore City through economic development, K-12 outreach, and working with nonprofits and governmental groups. I encourage you to get in touch to explore and identify additional collaborations and partners in the region. Have the last slide, please. So I'm happy to help you orient around Maryland, as would any of us on this, of the hosts on the webinar today. But if there's something that's piqued your interest, whether it's a collaboration with our aquaculture system, sponsoring research in marine systems or microalgae, or in business incubation, as you start to explore opportunities in Maryland, here are my points of contact, and I would love to hear from you. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you, Nina. Appreciate that. We're now going to advance ourselves to hearing from Andrew Rose. And Andrew is the managing director for the CyberAg initiative here in the US. Andrew?
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. I just do want to add one thing to what Nina said there. She mentioned showing folks around Maryland. Should you come here, we will pull some beautiful swimmers out of the water, crack their shells, and show you how to steam their meat and enjoy that with a little Old Bay seasoning. And thank you, Nina and Dr. Hill, for placating, or at least identifying the genes in the blue crab genome that will placate their cannibalistic tendencies so we can grow them in RASTEC systems, and that could be a future opportunity for collaboration. Anyway, Andrew Rose, my focus is on hardening the food and ag supply chain from cybersecurity and other risks. We can't just put this in one bucket because biosecurity and other threats exist out there, and we can't operate in a vacuum. I don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm going to blow through everything I got here. I'm not going to tell you there's a threat. Everyone knows there's a threat. Where is it coming from? Russia, Eastern Europe, looking for financial gain, and they have weaponized all aspects of cyber weaponry. China, they want your crown jewels, trade secrets, and what have you. If you want to know their game plan, they put it in press. It's called the 14th Five-Year Plan. Read that. Study the places that they say they're going to acquire these technologies in genomics, and that'll give you a heads up to how high the wall should be and how deep that moat should be around your crown jewels. What I do want to talk about today, since I have a little bit of time, are the emerging threats. Terrorists and nation states obviously have these weapons, and they're gaining proficiency. The closer a terrorist organization is affiliated to a nation state, gives them access to a lot more resource, manpower, treasure, other things like that. So just keep in mind that that'll be an asymmetric threat to the food and ag supply chain. The other one that we're keenly watching, our animal activists also have access to cyber weaponry. Currently, we're seeing campaigns around bullying, shaming, things like that on social media and other places. We are also seeing a lot of catfishing. And if you're not familiar with the social engineering campaigns that our adversaries use, they will scrape all known data about you off the internet, and they will build a persona profile. Then they will build a counter profile that's made to appeal to you. And it could be, the entree could be financial, could be academic. It could be someone pretending to be from the press contacting you for a story, an article, and their end game isn't necessarily to corrupt you or have you do something on their behalf. They just want access to these systems, and you will be that entree. Obviously, and Bert will back me up, if you haven't been attacked yet from a cyber criminal, you will be, or it's because you haven't realized you are being attacked. I strongly encourage everyone in the audience, regardless of your station, to run an exercise where you simulate not having access to the internet for a week. Can you run your business? And if not, what are those things you need to put in place right now to ensure that there's some level of operation in your organization to mitigate whatever is occurring at that point? On the near horizon, we're seeing a lot of deep fakes and vishing. Vishing is voice impersonation. It's very simple to do now with very simple software programs that are out there. So you might get a wire transfer request from senior management, and you call senior management to confirm it because that is your protocol internally. And you hear that senior management saying, yes, thank you for calling. Please execute that. Good job. You go ahead and execute that. And that was not that senior manager. Understand that threat actors are probably sitting in your emails right now, watching every email that comes in and out. When they see one that is financially has some sort of financial or transfer in it, they jump in there and impersonate one or both. Well, I can't do both parties. One of the parties and facilitate that transfer. That is happening right now, all over the place. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with, this isn't all doom and gloom. Law enforcement, both domestically and via Interpol, is arresting thousands of these people who are doing this to us. So let's celebrate when these criminal adversaries get their 3 hots in a cot and they go to jail for decades at times. And if you're watching the U.S. Cyber Command, no longer are we waiting for the punch. We now have a protocol of persistent engagement. We are sitting there in the rooms with these bad guys and bad ladies. And we would like for them to understand that their actions will cause a risk and consequence to them if they try and attack our food and ag supply chain. So I think I filled my 2 minutes, maybe a little bit over there, Mike, and I will pass the torch back over to you, buddy.
All right, great. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that it wasn't all gloom and doom. So let's now move on to our second Andrew Kreinik, who's the regional manager in the Division of International Investment and Trade for the Maryland Department of Commerce. So Andrew.
Well, good morning and good afternoon. And I'd like to thank Andrew Rose for heightening our awareness of the concerns and fears and scaring the crap out of us. So let me talk about the soft landing program, because this is a way that we can expand our businesses. The soft landing program, you've heard reference to it from several of the speakers now, and it's designed as a way for foreign companies to explore a new market in Maryland. So it gives them the opportunity through reduced risk in order to be able to enter into a market. For instance, it allows a foreign company, and we do have a relationship with InnovationQuarter, South Holland, and we've now expanded our program on our side so that a foreign company can come to an incubator, one of the participating incubators. We have about 21 participating incubators, to land up to 2 staff at a time for up to 3 months. They can access the facility amenities, such as the internet, the conference rooms, depending on the incubator. Some provide hot desk, some provide a dedicated office, some provide co-sharing space. It all depends on 1, what the facility is able to offer, and 2, what the international company actually needs. The cost for those 3 months are at a reduced monthly rate. This again is to reduce the risk. Next slide, please. Now, the program provides networking and mentoring services that are offered by the facility, which would typically be for the long-term members. These could be educational programs, access to mentors, strategic partnerships, funding for participants, and networking events. But I'd like you to know that the Maryland Department of Commerce also participates in this, and we also assist with networking as part of this program. So we would like to welcome companies that are interested in not just Maryland, but in the United States in general. We see Maryland as being not just centered on Maryland, but as a gateway to the US. So we would welcome you to come here. We can assist with business registration, navigating state regulations, all sorts of services in order to make you feel as though this is the right choice to locate in the US to be able to expand your business. So I thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I can, I'm happy to talk to you. Like I said, there are 20 participating incubators in Maryland. Some of them specialize in areas of ag tech, cybersecurity, environmental technologies, life sciences, biotech, medtech. So you can fit in a lot of different sectors into one of these incubators, and you can find a place to grow your business here in the US and Maryland in particular. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that. And I appreciate all of our speakers. Thank you. It seems like we did a really good job because we're running a few minutes ahead of schedule. So great job, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate everyone's contribution. Up to this point, I don't see that we have any questions from our attendees. So I will initiate a couple of questions to our speakers, and hopefully that'll give our attendees time to maybe come up with some questions of their own. Please add them into the Q&A section, and we'll be happy to try to address them. I'm going to throw out a question to our friends from the Netherlands that are on this webinar. And that starts with, how much of a problem is salt intrusion and soil salinity in the Netherlands? I know that salt intrusion is a big issue here in the Mid-Atlantic and around the Chesapeake Bay. And are there any efforts underway to develop innovations that can help address this challenge?
Thanks, Mike. I think I'll take that on, given the fact that Eric is unfortunately no longer with us. It's a fairly technical question to take on, but it's definitely one of the key points that we have in the Netherlands. As you probably know, we are well below sea level. About a third of the country is below sea level, and it gives all kinds of challenges in terms of managing the water, but also managing the soil. So we've talked a bit about the controlled environment agriculture today, and that's obviously a big part of our country in producing a lot of food. However, there's big parts of the Netherlands where you still have open agriculture. And especially there, you've seen a lot of developments in terms of trying to manage that soil intrusion. I'm by no means an expert on that topic, but I'm happy to connect anybody interested in that to partners at, for example, the Wageningen University, but also the Netherlands Water Partnership. There's heaps of companies specializing in that, companies like Deltaris, Royal Eichenkamp. So I'm happy to connect people to those companies or organizations. And my details are in the slide deck as well.
Okay. Andrew Rose, let me bring you into this conversation. I know that you've been involved in this issue in Maryland relative to saltwater intrusion. So if you want to turn on your video.
Absolutely. Saltwater intrusion is an existential threat. I know it most intimately here in the Delmarva area, but across the East Coast, Louisiana, South Florida, they're all experiencing the same thing. There's a semi-permeable membrane that exists between the freshwater and the saltwater. And as we draw that freshwater up for irrigation, municipal purposes, what have you, it creates a capillary effect, and it pulls that saltwater in there underneath the freshwater shield, which protects the ability for folks to have non-saline water for consumption and agriculture uses. We're rapidly losing that ability. The first indicator that we saw that put it on the scientists' radar was the ghost forest. Trees that existed in a Piedmont or a coastal plain were starting to turn gray and die very quickly. And that got people wondering then, what is this white crust we're seeing on the tops of the soil? So again, just like cybersecurity, they're existential threats, but they're opportunities for businesses as well. And one of the things I like about the Netherlands is how well you've adapted to your geographical circumstances. And I think there's a lot we can learn from you, both in shoreline adaptation, but also in species adaptations, whether those are nurseries, grow outs, hatcheries for aquatic proteins and other uses. But I'm really excited about this handshake we're making here, because there's a ton of opportunities existing between our two areas, I should say, rather than organizations.
Great.
Oh, hey, one last thing too. I forgot to
Sure.
say this when I give my presentation. For my friends in the Netherlands, Guten Tag, and for my friends here in Baltimore, Guten Morgen. And I hope I said that phonetically properly, but you'll appreciate the effort. Thank you.
Thank
Give you a
Andrew.
pass, Andrew. That's perfect.
So again, I'm going to throw out a question that can involve a lot of our speakers today. I think digital infrastructure is always an issue whenever a company is looking to relocate to another locale. So could everyone speak to, as best they can, to describing what the digital infrastructure looks like, both in the Netherlands and in Maryland? Anyone?
I think this is the point where you call on somebody, Mike.
Okay, let me start with Ewing. Let me put you on the hot seat.
I'm sorry, I can't get on. My video won't work. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, we got your voice. That's good enough.
Yeah. So there is an initiative in Maryland for to attract data centers, which is an important part of the future of Maryland and biotech in Maryland, as well as we have a company interested in coming to Maryland that specifically will focus on ag data centers. So we're very interested in those. Thank you.
Okay. Rolf, anything, or Franz?
Well, in terms of the data centers, we're actually moving from a FDI perspective, moving a bit away from attracting those companies due to their impact in energy consumption. However, we also want to be the gateway in terms of the internet connection in Europe. So it's still a quite important kind of industry. I think if you look at, for example, trying to connect to the Netherlands or to our region in particular, in terms of any digital space, I think accessing the soft landing program really is helpful. We also have those facilities based on the MOU that we have, and I'm very happy to paint the landscape and also just connect you with the relevant partners in the industry. So I'm more than willing and happy to take on any of these questions if they are really specific, and connect them to Bert or any other companies or organizations active in this field.
Well, I'll supplement a little bit of information on the Maryland side of this question. Maryland's done a tremendous amount of job, or a tremendous job, I should say, of investing in our internet infrastructure. I know that many times in rural areas, there's a limit, but here on the Eastern Shore, which is very rural part of Maryland, we have incredible fiber service. We have lots of redundancy. A lot of it has to do with the fact that we are so close to Loudoun County, Virginia, which has a huge amount of server activity for Amazon and Google and Microsoft and so forth. So we have one of the nation's probably best infrastructure relative to digital. I'm going to ask a question that's specific to the Netherlands, only because we know the Netherlands is famous for its tulips. And there was a brief mention, I believe, by Eric relative to, or maybe it was Bert, relative to horticulture. And so how much is food and ag part of the AgriTech sector versus horticulture? And are there any cool innovations that are surfacing specifically in horticulture? Because we have a good landscape sector here in Maryland as well. So there might be opportunities for horticulture here.
I think they go hand in hand, Mike. To be honest, in the Netherlands, we actually take those two industries basically together. Just in terms of their technology, they're quite similar. So we're really trying to evolve also on the horticulture field in terms of innovations with robotics, for example, AI, those kind of things. So it is actually one of our key focus points at the moment. And again, it's not only about food production, it's also about that growing flowers. And as you probably know, we are quite well known for exporting tulips all over the world. But it's all based on trying to still evolve that industry. And I think the key points at the moment are, again, robotics, analyzing of plants or early stage growth, and trying to see where we can help those developments in terms of getting more production out of those greenhouses. So most of it, not all of it, I mean, part of it is controlled again, part of it is open field. And even in open field, I mean, if you look at drones, for example, analytics, AI, there's just so much happening. It's really exciting. I mean, the industry has really moved from a kind of labor-intensive industry into a tech-intensive industry. And I think there will only be more and more in the future.
My next question is going to be both targeted to Maryland and the Netherlands, but let me focus first on Maryland. So this is to Nina, Chris, and Steve Connelly. Can you speak to, because I know whenever a company relocates to another geography, there's always this concern about how best to deal with the government and with regulations. Can you speak to a little bit about what the regulatory environment is here in Maryland and the US relative to agriculture and aquaculture businesses?
Who wants to start?
Why don't you?
I guess I'll start. Steve Connelly with Maryland Department of Agriculture. Agriculture is a fairly regulated industry in the state of Maryland. Our consumers and our legislature expect us to be working towards sustainability and addressing issues like climate change. But our farmers have embraced a lot of the regulatory challenges so that they can continue to farm. We have mandatory nutrient management if you're growing crops. We have food safety regulations, whether it's in the dairy sector, it comes through our health department, or whether it's through the produce sector, we are implementing the Food Modernization Act here in the United States. We also, while we have a lot of regulations, we try to provide assistance as well as education so that we can find common sense solutions so that farmers can benefit from being able to meet the regulations and actually turn that around as a marketing tool to show that they have met those requirements.
Right. So, regulation isn't always bad. Chris and Nina, what are some of the upsides to Maryland's location to close to the nation's capital in terms of interacting with some of our federal regulatory requirements? What are some of your comments as far as the commercialization efforts of companies that you've been involved with?
Yeah, I'll kind of jump in real quick. I think the interesting part from this end, especially for foreign entities, is to understand a general U.S. market aspect of the regulatory environment, which is we have federal, state, and even local regulations. And the important thing in being a foreign entity is to understand those differences throughout the U.S. as they do vary. And the oversight also varies depending on the sector. So if you're looking, for example, at aquaculture, there are numerous aspects of this. One part related to federal aspects, if it's in federal waters, if it's local and dealing in the Chesapeake Bay, maybe another. And if you're on a land-based system, then you're looking more at ag and runoff, as well as nutrient concerns. So it's a pretty diverse landscape. I'd say the aspect of our location here that makes it very advantageous is the proximity to a lot of these larger entities and bodies, which you have access to be able to help as well with a lot of the sectors that we're dealing with, which may not even have a streamlined set of regulations set forth. And I've dealt in the past a lot with even the creation of new types of legislation laws to be able to work through developing sectors with new technology. So I think that the proximity and Maryland's position is probably its biggest benefit in dealing with this issue, in that, in my experience, I've had faster success in aiding companies and developing them by being able to have a greater access and a greater network of experience around the region to dealing with new as well as existing regulation.
Okay, Nina, any thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize the key to understanding that layered approach that Chris talked about, because you have the local regs and then you've got the state level regulations, and of course they have to align with federal government regulations. The proximity of Maryland to DC really, I think, helps the state in staying on top and even perhaps even directing future kind of regulatory topics and approaches as well. So my advice, honestly, is tap into the expertise, whether you liaise with a local government official or someone in the private sector with experience. It's honestly, they can help steward you a lot more quickly and efficiently than you try to do it yourself. And if there's a parallel to the biotech sector with regulation, it's never too early to start thinking about it and having those conversations. Again, the payoff in time and money is there.
Great, thank you. What about the Netherlands side? Rolf, Bert, Franz, any thoughts on dealing with regulatory issues?
Well, I think it's actually not all that different, except for the fact that we have European regulations. So if you are exporting, for example, technology, you'll have to deal with the EU standards. However, the good thing is if you do have EU approval, you have access to a market of over 500 million people. So actually, if you do set up your business in the Netherlands or your technology and expand from there, there's a huge market. We are, I think, quite well positioned with the Port of Rotterdam being a very sufficient port in terms of exporting goods, for example. So it's really internationally orientated, and the logistics are well organized. In terms of regulatory environment, I think in my experience, it's really doable. But again, I really support the comments by Nina that you have to take that on really early in the process. It's all about getting your basics right, and the technology is one thing, that's great, but you have to really think about those kind of details. Without going into the details, you won't have a successful operation. I think that's the same in Maryland as it is in the Netherlands. But maybe it's interesting also to ask Bert if he sees a different approach or perhaps experience in terms of the cyber aspect of all this.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And I think maybe one thing to add, and I think also a lot of regulations come from a European level. Also this year, next year, there will be new stricter EU regulations when it comes to the agriculture sector, which will become has become much more of a focus area also for the European Commission when it comes to cybersecurity. Also means on the other side that there will be stricter regulations. The EU is very much about an open market, so that is an advantage, I think, in many cases. And I think if you're purely speaking about like trade, often, especially when it comes to more core security, trust plays a very important role. It's not always about regulation, but it's also very much about trust. And always the advice that we give organizations, even though people in the Netherlands speak English relatively well, it always helps to have someone on the ground here. And often it also helps to have someone who speaks at least a little bit of Dutch to really like promote yourself here and to really get involved in the sector here. It's not always an obligation, but it's always an advice that we give. Like it always seems like relatively easy to do business here, and it is in many cases. But sometimes it helps also to build that next level of trust, to also do that in the language of the country here.
Terrific. All right, good feedback. Thank you. It looks like we have a question from Joris, and I'm going to direct this one to Ewing McDowell, and he's asking what kind of ambitions there are in Maryland relative to controlled environment agriculture?
So we view controlled environment agriculture as an integral part of the future at Maryland. I get a lot of interest from not only North America, but other parts of the world to locate new ventures here. And we have the parts of the requirements to do that. We have adequate available water. We have potential for needed energy. And we also have a labor force that's available to accomplish those goals. So we believe this is very important.
All right. I guess what I'd like to do is begin to close out with one last question, unless there's anyone else as far as the attendees that wants to pop in a question. But I was going to direct my next question to Bert and to Andrew Rose. And that is, let's talk a little bit more about cybersecurity in agriculture, and allow you guys to sort of close out this session and chat about things maybe you didn't get a chance to talk about in your brief few minutes. So any last parting thoughts on the issue? And you guys have a dialogue between you.
Sounds good. Hey, I do want to echo one thing that Bert said about the regulations. A lot of times government is really good about imposing regulations, not only in cybersecurity, but in agriculture too, telling a farmer how they should do their job. My words, I don't think there's any elected officials on this call here, but if you watch this later, my advice to you is tell us where the North Star is. Tell us where you want us to be, and we'll figure out how to get there. Don't tell us how to get somewhere, because by the time you write those rules and regulations and sign them into law, it's 2 years too late. And now we're stuck in a static defense position. We can't evolve with our adversaries. Just tell us what we need to do from where we need to go. And Bert and I and the rest of this, well, I won't call myself a smart person because I'm obviously not the smartest one in the room here, but we'll figure it out. We'll get there. I mean, Bert, do you have a similar, I guess I'm assuming you probably have a similar setup over there too.
Yeah, and this is of course always the main thing, right? Like, so especially when it comes to digital, like cybersecurity aspects, things move quickly. And decision-making, law-making, regulations move very slowly. So you're always behind. So always expect to be, so if you meet certain requirements, you're probably already behind. That is one thing. And I think it's good to also maybe sometimes also think about this in more traditional sense, like when it comes to risk management, like maybe also cyber insurance can play a role here.
Oh, no. I don't know if you saw the ruling that came down 2 days ago from Zurich and Merck. Oh yeah, the legs are completely gone from the cybersecurity insurance world. We're in free fall right now. If you have a policy, you better hope that it pays out if you have an attack, because as we both know, an attacker is going to be in your system for an average of 4 months. The first two places they go is they shred your backups and they pull your insurance stocks. They figure out what is the payout going to be for a ransomware attack or a cyber attack, and they deploy the customer service reps, and that's what they asked for. So in that whole world, I mean, it's upside down. It's not going to be out there. I think though, you had a point on your slide about the community and ISACs, and I know that sounds super duper geeky, the ISACs, but the enemy share information. This is where the defenders share information. This is crucially important to how we mitigate and respond to these attacks and shocks, because sometimes the shock will not be a cyber attack. It could be a blended attack. It could be a biosecurity and a cyber attack at once.
And it's interesting to see, right? Because indeed, like, cyber insurance has been troubling for a very long time already. Like, no one has completely figured it out yet. No one, if like the person who figures it out, he's going to be very rich. And the main thing is also there, what you see is that things move along so quickly that often you're already behind. Like as a fire insurance, you already know like sort of what's going to happen, right? The front door is going to catch fire, or the roof is going to catch fire, or the window is going to catch fire. But when it comes to like cyber incidents, it is very unpredictable. Things move quickly, and that also makes it very difficult also from a traditional perspective to look at risk. But then also,
and then to think about the risk is not just isolated to the company that's being attacked. If it's in a food and ag supply chain, there's cascading effects on both sides. That effect can go all the way back to the farm gate or the customer plate. So it's not just isolated, the manufacturing of the widget stops at this day. It's, NASA, we got a problem.
Yeah, and then so again also like collaboration, for example, in an ISAC, like that is going to play an increasingly important role. You need to learn with and from each other. Together you're much stronger, and it's necessary. You cannot do this on your own. That is always the main thing that we say. And also when it comes to like collaboration between countries, like EU is plays an important role in this, and one of the main aspects for this is also that us as the Netherlands, we could make these regulations, but we are part of a much broader market, and we always first of all look at the EU. But like it's almost impossible to have EU regulations and US regulations. Also, those like these need to come together. This is almost impossible otherwise.
Well, yeah, I think it is impossible. I think with what you're outlining there never happened. So we need to deal with the situation that we have at hand. And I know there's some listeners out there saying, okay, you scared the pants off me. What do I do? When the internet was created, it was created for interoperability. Security was rarely on anyone's list, and rarely was it ever at the top of the list. So now we got 20 years of programs, applications, hardware, they're plugging into each other that don't have security as part of the premise. So there are holes everywhere. Companies realize this. They're pushing out patches as fast as they possibly can. Sometimes these patches come out between your automatic update cycles. I check my browsers every day for updates. Please do that, because sometimes you won't, because if you don't check it, the bad guy already has, or the threat actors have already gotten in there. So take a look at all your stuff. If you use Facebook or any of the other apps and you've played a game on there, I'm not going to say Wordle's that way. I think Wordle's clean, but any game like that, you click a terms and agreement box, and that EULA, the end user licensing agreement, sometimes will say, hey, if this company ever goes bankrupt, they will sell their assets to another company that now has access to all your contacts, your messaging platforms, and they will impersonate you to send messaging out to your friends. And so you'll see that post, oh, I got hacked. I got to change my password. And I tell them, you didn't get hacked. You let the vampire in your house. Now you got to get it out. Good luck, So just if you would go back and check, if you're on Facebook, check all the apps you've given permission to. And if you don't recognize them, take that permission away, because if they don't hit you now, they're going to hit you sometime in the future.
Yeah. And then maybe like one more point, because we also spoke about quickly, like one of the speakers discussed also data centers. Know that like EU, especially the GDPR regulation in the EU is of course quite strong. That also like brings in issues, like for example, with like data that you get from the EU, these need to stay in the EU. So if you have a business model positioned on data and you want to operate from the US, that is something that you need to like look out for.
There are third rails everywhere, but thank God people like me and you exist, Bert, so we can help guide folks through this minefield, hopefully successfully, or at least with some of their limbs left.
True.
Well, thank you to the two of you for helping sort of be a voice relative to increasing awareness about cybersecurity in agriculture and aquaculture. And so with that, I am going to begin to wrap things up here. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A section. So right now, it's important that we recognize the partners that were involved in putting this webinar together. And I want to express our deep appreciation. The list includes InnovationQuarter, the Maryland Department of Commerce, the Maryland Department of Agriculture, the Netherlands America Chamber of Commerce, the Baltimore-Rotterdam Sister Cities Program, Security Delta, F3 Tech Accelerator, Rotterdam Partners, CyberAg, the Institute of Marine and Environmental Technology, and the Eastern Shore Entrepreneurship Center. One of the things that I believe I was asked to briefly mention is to make those in Maryland aware that there will be a delegation coming from the Netherlands, I believe in April, to better explore, more thoroughly explore opportunities in AgriTech and Aquatech here in the state and in the Mid-Atlantic. So I'm sure we'll be sharing with you if you attended or registered to attend. We'll have your email information and we'll forward you some information on that. Again, as I mentioned at the outset, This, we hope, will be the first of what will be many other webinars that sort of explore other aspects of opportunities for business collaboration, commercialization between Maryland and the Netherlands. So with that, I will just say thank you for being with us. Thank you for sticking with us for the hour and a half. And we'll look forward to catching you on the next webinar. So everyone have a good day. Thank you.